Hello everyone and welcome to Deckbuilding Derezzed. I'm your host, Code Marvelous, and today I'm joined by Simon, a friend of mine from the Philadelphia meta.
Hi, Dan.
Thank you very much for coming on, Simon. You're one of the people that I've been playing against really since I started going up to Philly. I think you've been there the entire time that I've been going there. And I wanted to have you on because you and I met up at the Philadelphia Regionals, and you were playing a very interesting New Angeles Soul deck. But before we get into that, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about how you got into Netrunner and what your journey to the most recent Regionals was.
Well, I started playing Netrunner about 2 years ago. At the time, I was living in Portland, and one of my friends there, who I knew from the sort of gaming community, from D&D sessions, was very much a Netrunner evangelist, and he kept telling me, you've got to try this game, you've got to try this game. One day I saw the core set on special, so I thought, I'll buy this, and I'll make my friend Brian teach me how to play. So I did that, and I made the beginner mistake, I think, of all Netrunner players, which is that I insisted on building my own decks from the start.
Yeah.
Which led me into folly more than once.
Yeah.
I think I learned a lot doing that, but mostly by negative example.
Right.
But, I had been playing in the Philadelphia meta then for the last 2 years, which is
Pretty competitive. Pretty competitive.
A pretty rough environment to be sort of trial and error deck building.
Right.
Started playing on Jinteki about a year ago. Started looking at decks more closely on NRDB. And I found myself in a rut with Wayland. I kept trying to make Wayland decks work. It wasn't really working for me, and so I wanted to try something new with an ID that I hadn't used much, a faction I hadn't used much, which was NBN. And essentially I got very excited about some of the new currents that came out in Mumbad, specifically Clones Are Not People.
Okay.
And I decided to build a deck that could leverage that with the fast advance abilities of NBN in order to win the race with the runner.
Right. Yeah. And looking at this deck you built, and I played against it before because you were actually on as an opponent. You were on our test run with Constantine. And this deck is pretty brutal because you've really leveraged kind of NBN bullshit to the max with this.
Thank you, I think.
No, but I mean, like, if you're already really good at just kind of chaining agendas together, why not chain another agenda, right?
Right. And I then adapted that deck after, tuned it up a little bit, actually, after our game for regionals.
Right.
And I took the revised deck to regionals, and my runner game fell short, but I went undefeated through 5 rounds of Swiss on Corpse side, which was my all-time best tournament performance.
Right. And you were also, you're playing against, like, my friend Ian and a couple other people who made it to the top cut as well. So it's not like you were in, mid or bottom table land. You were up there with the big dogs for most of the Swiss. So let's get into it a little bit. Soul's kind of an on-again, off-again identity, but for those of you who don't know, it's the 45-15 NBN identity where whenever agenda is scored or stolen, you can take a current out of your hand or pull one out of the trash and play it. So basically, once you find your first current, there's a current in play forever. Now, looking at this deck, let's really talk about the currents first, because I feel like that's like the linchpin of the deck.
Okay.
So let's start with Clones Are Not People, since that's the one that you said really attracted you to this build. Let's talk about this current, which is from the Mumba cycle, and it's the 3 cost, 3 influence Jinteki one that says whenever you score an agenda, you add clones are not people as a 1-point agenda to your score area.
Mm-hmm.
So at face value, when we were playing against this online, and when people look at this list, that's a lot of influence to drop on 2 Kurds. So walk me through the decision and how effective this has been in your testing, etc.
Well, I've actually found clones are not people to be like you say. It really is sort of what defines this deck, and I think that for me, I run 2 clones are not people, 3 targeted marketing, and usually out of the gate, the first one I want to put down is targeted marketing, and I want to wait to get clones are not people out.
Okay.
The only exception would really be if I really need to get a current out there to activate my news hounds.
Right. Now, if you're looking to get target marketing down first, which isn't necessarily surprising to anyone who's played against Soul, obviously this is a meta call, what you're calling based on what you've seen and what kind of build you're up against. But, how often are you doing this against cards that they're only going to play once, or do you tend to focus on cards that they're maybe going to want to play multiple times?
Well, first thing out, it'll usually be cards that they're going to be playing multiple times in the early game. Usually,
right.
If I play one in the mid game, it'll often be naming Levy, for example.
Right. Which is, potent, since a lot of tournament competitive runners right now are running at least 1 Levy.
Yeah.
And you just basically are saying, give me 10 credits when you want to restart your deck, which is not insignificant when that's more than enough for you to res a Sand grid and fast advance anything.
And particularly if I'm going to be getting a 3 cost current out there when the scoring window opens, it's really important to have
good money.
Yeah,
no, that makes 100% sense. So we've got, those are the only 2 currents in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about exchange of information, because man, is this card lighting up the competitive scene right now.
Yeah, and that actually won me one of my games at regionals against Ian. It absolutely won the game for me.
Yeah, making that breaking news global food exchange is not insignificant.
In addition to the to a 2-point swing, it also leaves him stuck with tags that he has to clear.
Right.
And set me up for All-Seeing Eye.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, that combo's so good.
So
crazy.
That was pretty huge, and that was something that I don't often do, but was forced to by the gang sign Leela combination that Ian was running.
Right.
Had several agendas on the board just so I wouldn't get...
right, just so he wouldn't be plucking 3 out of your hand.
Yeah.
It's tough. Leela's always been a tough matchup for NBN. Because you tend to have like an on-deck circle, to use a baseball term, of you've got like an agenda going into the remote, and a lot of times you have 1 in the hand waiting to go in the next turn. At least 1.
So I think more than probably any other deck that I've played with this particular deck, I'm more likely to leave breaking news out on the table. Just
naked.
Either naked or in a glacier to bluff it as a sand grid.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, then that way, if they manage to pluck something big off of R&D, if you're holding the exchange of information, you can go advance, score, and then just exchange it.
Right. And it also lets me start a turn, play clones are not people, advance twice, and then play targeted marketing back up from scoring it.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. Now, there's a lot of there's a lot of moving parts as far as the currents are concerned and all the different triggers. So we've got Fast Track. We don't need to belabor that too much. One of the biggest enemies of a deck like this when you're trying to really take advantage of scoring windows is that if you don't have an agenda when you have that window, that's really bad. We've got Hedge Funds, Sweep Weeks, pretty standard stuff there. All-Seeing Eye. Now, this is a card, I've been playing NBN for a long time. I'm always waffling on whether or not I actually need to include this or not. How often are you finding that you actually use it?
I'd say 1 in every 5 games, maybe.
Right. Yeah. I feel like that's a lot of times the rub, but it's like super impactful when you do get to play it. Yeah, no, All-Seeing Eye is such an interesting card because on paper it's like one of the best cards imaginable. But there's a lot of situations where just scoring or doing something else is just a better option.
Yeah, and to say nothing of Fall Guys that can really dent its effectiveness.
Right, that's also true. But yeah, so that's the ops. Not too much there. Why don't we move up to upgrades? Now, you've got a lot of fast advance going on here, but you've only got one Cyberdex. A lot of people who are running NBN these days are running 2. Did you find yourself digging for it a lot, or what's the play with the only one Cyberdex? Or are you bluffing out or never advancing a lot of the time?
Usually I keep Cyberdex on a central. Whichever central they seem to be neglecting.
Right.
And so I just keep it there until I need it. I have gone back and forth on this between... I had 2 until I got Liberated Mind, and then I just decided I'll drop 1 for exchange of information.
Right.
And I haven't really regretted that. If I was going to go back up to 2, I'd probably drop All-Seeing Eye.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Now, you got 2 Keegan Lanes in here, which is a fantastic card that I really deeply enjoy. And for those of you who don't know, it's the 0-cost sysop that says when you can trash it, and you remove 1 tag off the runner, and then you get to trash 1 program, and they have to be making a run on this specific server in order for it to work. Now, you don't have a ton of tag attachment, but you do have the breaking news. So how often were you seeing this come through?
I saw it more effective as deterrence than as something that actually killed a program.
Right. They know it's there, so they have to be aware of that.
Yeah, and even if I don't have a Data Raven in front of it, if I put him down and res him, if I have unresed ice in front of him, it carries that.
Right, people assume it's a Data Raven or some strong piece of tag ice. Yeah. He's just fantastic, and when he does land, I feel like, especially with the meta going back towards criminals, I feel like he's going to just get better.
Yeah.
Because getting rid of programs is super good against criminals. Now, finishing out the upgrades, we have 2 Sand City grids. So, 2 Sands instead of 3, was that just a influence choice?
I had a little influence left to spare. I think it was mostly deciding for that to bring in more ice.
Yeah.
Because I think otherwise the ice package gets pretty paltry if I take any of those out.
Yeah. And you do have a little bit of setup here, so you're not somebody who can maybe do like a sync play or like the way my NEH deck plays, where I'm like, I don't have any ice really, but you're probably not going to win before I start running away,
Right.
Yeah. We got 3 Jackson Howards. I hear Jackson Howard saves many a game, especially when you get them for free.
Yeah, for everyone, everywhere, for all time, well, until rotation kicks in.
Yeah, saving you from noise since the spin cycle.
Basically,
Yeah.
If I was playing Jinteki, I'd save myself from noise with cerebral static. But
right. So we've got, as far as agendas are concerned, we've got 3 Astros, and I feel like this just feeds right into the clones are not people plan, because you can just be like, oh, I drew a second Astro, play clones are not people, put it down on the sand, and then chain them together.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that, or combo it and use your Astro token for any of the to add a point boost to any of your agendas.
Right. Yeah, and it's just fantastic. 100% deserves to be on the MWL. We've got 3 breaking news and the 1:15 minutes, so you have the 4-2-1 combo. Breaking news, just I guess what I'm really curious about, because this deck's kind of a mystery to me. It's definitely not the type of NBN that I normally play. Is are you saving this to get some sort of tag combo out of it, or are you playing it where it's really conditional? Because I think about breaking news in my deck, and it's just, if I can score an agenda, that's what I do. You know what I mean? With not a lot of thought to like any of the added value, because I'm doing pure fast advance plan.
I mean, the big thing for me is scoring it. Is just getting the point and hopefully getting 2 points by comboing with clones are not people.
Right. And you mentioned that you try to bluff it out sometimes if you can, just to kind of see if you can get any of that additional value out of it.
Yeah.
So we got 2 global foods. There's a lot of good reasons to have a 2 of global food in a yellow deck. We got Project Beal. Now, here is my one agenda suite question, because I'm curious. You opted for the additional breaking news in the 15 minutes over the 3rd Beal. Is that something that came out during testing?
No, I started off with that concept because I wanted to get the most out of 2-1 agendas with the clones current.
Right.
And so from the start, I wanted to say, I can effectively have 2-2 agendas.
Right. That makes sense. And it also gives you more opportunities to trigger Soul's ability and change what target marketing is on, etc. Yeah. That makes sense. Having the more 2-1s gives you more value in this deck than the extra 3-2. So let's talk about the ice. Where do you want to start as far as the ice is concerned?
Well, I think that Newshound is probably the workhorse of any Soul deck.
Okay. So it's the 2/4. It's a Sentry Tracer. If a current is active, it gets an end the run subroutine, and it's got a Trace 3 tag. So talk to me a little bit about this ice as a workhorse in this build.
Is that it's once the current is up, it's cheap gear check with an additional sort of tag threat.
Right.
Hopefully, the runner doesn't know until they've seen a couple of the currents that I don't have as much tag punishment.
Or you don't have meat tag punishment. Now, it's worth noting that this is out of Mimic range, which is super duper important. And if you have a current active, it's also going to be a total of 3 cards for Faust, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I think that probably one of the weaker spots for this ice package is Atman, actually.
Oof, yeah.
Because a 4-token Atman plows through the sentries.
Yeah, that's true. Because you've also got You've also got the Data Ravens, which are 4 strength. Now they're taking the tag coming in, but depending on what kind of econ they got going, that's not necessarily the end of the world.
So, Data Raven is there to turn on Keegan, or, on the off chance that the runner actually lets me get a Data Raven counter, just happened once or twice, it lets me turn on Exchange of Information or All-Seeing Eye.
Yeah, no, it's really good. The mythical Data Raven counters, when you can have them, they're either completely valueless because they're just floating a mountain of tags, or it's just the promise of threat later in the game.
Yeah, I mean, Wraparound is just basic gear check, early rush ice. It often doesn't end up installed by the end of the game. Once they get their Inti out or their Corroder, I just trash it.
Right. Yep, and I think people, unfortunately, are finally starting to learn their lesson. Yellow was getting a lot of mileage out of Wraparound for a while because a lot of the Dumble Fork derivative builds were not running a Fractor at all. They were running Faust and Mimic. So you ended up getting a lot of David counters and value out of these Wraparounds, but people are finally realizing that, hey, maybe I should slot the one Corroder.
Yeah. The Troll is situational, but there are a couple of things that I really like about it. For zero link runners,
It's awful.
it really is good cheap tax. And against, for the most part, Dumble Fork, another reason I really like Troll is because it can protect Raven and Newshound against Forked.
Oh, yeah, that's also true, because they can't ever break a subroutine.
It's actually because if they pass Troll, its subroutines, it's considered to be broken subroutines.
Right.
So if they get past it, it means that they've just killed my one-cost Troll rather than
Right.
my more important
Right.
Raven.
Right.
Or
You're throwing this in the trash instead of an ice that is going to give you more long-term game-changing value.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also true, yeah. You got special offer in here. Got 2 of those. Now, is this just for the, again, kind of like almost a Explodapalooza type model where it's just when you can get that surprise, it gives you that little boost forward to help score?
I mean, essentially, it's a dare for the runner. Like, is it worth it to spend your cards on Faust to break this? Is it worth it to bring out a 3-strength Atman? Is it worth it? And either way, I'm only out a credit or
1 bit, yeah.
2 if it's stacked. It's really nice against criminals who would be looking to inside job something.
Yeah, that's also true. And criminals, by and large, still just don't run any AI at all. Or if they do, it's a singleton Faust that they don't want to be using cards on ice like this.
And I guess they have their one Diva breaker now.
I don't know if that... I mean, we'll see. I don't know if that's gotten a lot of traction yet. I think it's still a little too early to tell.
And then, pop-ups,
to be pop-ups and do pop-up things. Like, pop-ups are just one of... I think pound for pound, pop-up and pup are the 2 best ice in the game. From, like, if you want to talk about value exchange, they're just tremendous. And then we've got toll booths. Now, how often are you putting the toll booths on the centrals or as opposed to the remote or,
Well, I hate to res toll booth. I hate to be in a position
I think we all do. We all hate resing toll booth.
But sometimes you need it to be there. And sometimes, a lot of times, it will only be there to stop one run.
Right.
at the right time, at the right moment.
I think that's accurate. Yeah. But yeah, and I mean, I'll usually save one against criminal for HQ just because I'm like, yeah, do that siphon math now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, so yeah, I mean, the build is very unique. A lot of aspects of it are pretty straightforward, and you've incorporated a couple of different game plans from the NBN toolkit into something that, is kind of a unique approach. So, thank you very much for going over it with me, Simon.
My pleasure.
And now, everyone, as you know, we're going to go onto competitive Jinteki, and we're going to see if we can find ourselves an opponent and see how we do. Simon, you are larger most places on the interwebs, yes?
That is correct.
So you guys can find him on Netrunner DB, and are you on the StimHack forums as well?
I think so. I haven't been there in a while, but I think I have posted a few things there. I've been trying to avoid getting myself addicted to more message boards.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. So we're gonna go online and we're gonna see how we do. Everybody watching at home, until we see you again, always be running.